started with our first speech, which will be Cindy Anthony. This is her fourth speech, so that'll be 5 to 7 minutes, Emmy. And it's How Did I Get to Be So Lucky? Cindy.
I extol members of this club for being so flexible to take on the changing roles and the shifting roles so willingly. This morning when I woke up, I heard birds chirping sweet melodies. I glanced out the window and saw the beautiful aspen trees with their shimmering leaves softly rustling one another. I stretched out in my comfortable bed, soft and fluffy, and thought to myself, total bliss. It can't get much better than this. At that very moment, my younger son came running into the room, all dressed up for his day at school, to have a fun day, as he always tells me. He gave me a huge squeeze, a hug that is so full of his little heart in it, a squeeze so exquisite that it will melt any parent's heart. And he looked at me with his huge big eyes and said, "Mommy, I love you. How did I get to be so lucky?" I wasn't always so lucky. I grew up in Malaysia, in a part of town which was the noisiest street, the busiest part of town, and in the most densely populated city in the country. It was the city of Kuala Lumpur, which happened to be the capital city. Each morning I would wake up to the hustle bustle of people and cars, scurrying to go from one place to the other. There would be hawkers peddling their goods and wares, screaming at the top of their voices, "Roti, roti," which means bread, selling their bread. The noise could often be so deafening that I would have to put my hands over my ears, and this is while I'm wide awake. So no chirping of birds there, and definitely no rustling of leaves. What did I get to sleep on? Not a soft bed. Not even a hard bed. I had no bed. I slept on the floor. Unlike most Malaysians, I was luckier. I had a wooden floor. I slept on the floor on a mat made of straw. I shared the room with 6 other girls who was working as apprentices for my mother. And I know that it did not go very well with me sleeping on hard floors. The girls would often tell me that I have nightmares. And when I have nightmares, I would resort to pinching them in my sleep. Not with my fingers, mind you, with my toes. I have very dexterous toes. And to this day, I can pick up anything with my toes. The poor girls were so frazzled, they tried many things and many ways to stop me from doing that, and to stop me from being their nightmares. Finally, they resorted to tying my foot up to the window frame. How did I get to be so lucky? Soft, comfortable bed. As I was driving here today for the meeting, I passed by a bus stop. I saw several people waiting for their rides in eager anticipation. I felt almost as if I wanted to stop and ask them if they would like a ride, because I remembered what it was like when public transport was my only means of getting around. In Malaysia, to have a car is a real luxury. In the neighboring country of Singapore, for instance, before you could buy a car, you have to purchase a permit in order to buy a car. Let's say, for example, a Camry. It could cost you anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000 just for the permission to have a car. On top of that, you would have to pay for a car, so that's say $30,000, $40,000. That would add up to about $100,000, which is about 5 times the annual income of the average Malaysian, which is quite a hefty sum. That is almost like a $200,000 car for us, for a Camry. Pretty amazing. So you can imagine the number of people that ride buses. I was one of them. I had to take a bus to school, I had to take a bus to work. Have any of you been in Asia or seen movies where they show Asian buses? Have any of you? Mm-hmm. They're often packed like sardines, are they not? Mm-hmm. With some people hanging by the handles of the door. So it was not a fun thing at all. I remember that it was a matter of survival of the fittest. The ones that could push the hardest could get on the bus. I learned a little trick when I was a little girl. I learned that if I stood among some very strong people, Inevitably, when a bus arrives, the force would be so great that as they strive to push their way up, I would be literally lifted up in all the commotion and onto the bus. The price I had to pay for that, though, was that my morning fragrance would be replaced by the overpowering odors of my sweaty Good Samaritans. Picture a perfectly done hairdo, a crisp and well-pressed blouse, all tucked in for a killer day at work. After a bout of contact sport of riding a bus in Malaysia, I would often end up with hair like gollywog, disheveled, blouse crumpled, and lucky if I did not lose a shoe or two. Quite an amazing ride. How did I get to be so lucky? I got to be so lucky because my parents made sacrifices for me to have a good education, which opened many, many doors for me. I got to be so lucky because I dared to take on opportunities. I dared to venture and try new things, like speaking in front of such an accomplished crowd of orators. I got so lucky because I am not afraid of failures. And today I get to call America my home. 美国, as the Chinese call it, beautiful country. To coin the phrase of a local Utah, what about you? How did you get to be so dang lucky? Thank you.